When everything is collapsing, your emotions will try to control you. The Stoic refuses that control. The Stoic stands in the fire and remains still. This is not about being cold, it's about being clear. Because when you control your emotions, you control your life. This audiobook will teach you how to stand calm in the storm, how to think clearly when everything burns, and how to build a mind that never breaks, no matter what the world takes from you. This is the Stoic mind. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Control what you can, release what you can't. When life hits you hard, your first instinct is to grab control of everything. You want to fix it. You want to force it. You want to make things go your way. But here's the truth. You can't control most things. You can't control how other people act. You can't control the market. You can't control betrayal. You can't control chaos. You can only control one thing, your response. That's the beginning of the Stoic mind. Not the illusion of control, but the discipline of focus. The discipline to say, this is within my power, that is not. You lost a job, you can't control that. But you can control how fast you start learning new skills. Someone lied to you, you can't control that. But you can control how calmly you walk away. Life turned unfair, you can't control that. But you can control how you carry yourself through it. That's the difference between the average person and the Stoic. The average person reacts, the Stoic responds. The average person fights reality, the Stoic accepts it and moves. Control your response, release the rest. Control your response, release the rest. You have a choice. Every single time life tests you, you have a choice. You can waste energy on what's already lost or invest it in what's still yours. Your mind, your habits, your reactions. That's the key. Look at any moment of emotional chaos in your life. A breakup, a financial loss, a failure that shattered your confidence. What made it worse? It wasn't the event itself, it was your resistance to it. You kept replaying it, you kept fighting it, you kept wishing it was different. The Stoic doesn't do that. The Stoic accepts what happened immediately. Not because they like it, but because it's already real. Acceptance is not weakness, it's intelligence. It's the refusal to waste power on the impossible. You don't need their apology. You don't need closure. You don't need the situation to make sense. You only need to decide, who am I going to be now? That's where control begins, inside. The external world will always be unstable. People will disappoint you, systems will fail, plans will collapse. But your internal world, that can be solid. If you make it solid, control your response, release the rest. Think about how much time people waste trying to control others. They argue to change opinions. They beg for attention. They fight for validation. And every time they lose. Because you can't control what's outside your circle of influence. The Stoic draws a circle around their mind and says, everything outside this circle is not my problem. It's not coldness, it's clarity. It's not indifference, it's intelligence. You stop chasing what doesn't belong to you. You stop fighting battles that drain your spirit. Someone disrespected you, let them. That's their weakness, not yours. You can't control their behavior, but you can control your dignity. You can choose silence over reaction. You can choose focus over anger. You can choose growth over gossip. That's not passive, that's power. Because the moment you stop reacting to everything, you start directing everything. Control your response, release the rest. Let's get practical. Right now, make 2 lists in your mind. List 1, things you can control. Your effort, your mindset, your discipline, your routines, your reactions. List 2, things you cannot control. Other people's opinions, outcomes, timing, the past. Now ask yourself, which list gets most of your attention every day? If it's list 2, no wonder you feel drained. Because you're feeding chaos instead of clarity. Reclaim your energy. Refocus your power. You don't control everything, but you control enough to transform your life. That's the secret the Stoics lived by. They knew that calm doesn't come from fixing the world. It comes from mastering the self. Picture this. You're standing in a storm. Wind howling, rain crashing. Most people panic. They try to stop the rain. They scream at the wind. They fight the storm. But the Stoic stands still. They know the storm is not theirs to control. They focus on their stance, their breath, their footing. They wait, because the storm always passes, and those who stayed centered always rise stronger. That's emotional mastery. Not pretending to be unaffected, but choosing what deserves your reaction. You have a choice. Always. Even when everything around you is falling apart, you still have a choice. To react with chaos or to respond with calm. To resist the uncontrollable or to master yourself. To waste energy or to build it. Control your response, release the rest. When you understand this, stress loses its power. You stop being thrown around by every minor problem. Traffic doesn't break you. Disrespect doesn't shake you. Uncertainty doesn't paralyze you. You realize life is mostly neutral. You give it meaning by how you respond. That's freedom. That's the foundation of the Stoic mind. No one can steal that from you. Not failure, not rejection, not fear. They can touch your circumstances, but never your control. And that's the key, you are never powerless. As long as you can choose your reaction, you still have the upper hand. So the next time chaos hits, pause. Take 1 deep breath. Ask yourself, is this in my control? If it is, act. If it isn't, release it. Because wasting energy on the uncontrollable is the fastest way to lose your peace. Control your response, release the rest. That's how you begin to build the Stoic mind. Not by avoiding pain, not by controlling the world, but by mastering the only kingdom that's truly yours, your mind. When you stop chasing control outside, you gain control inside. And from that inner calm, everything else changes. You start thinking clearer. You start making better decisions. You stop reacting like everyone else. You become steady while others break. That's what this chapter is about. That's the foundation of unshakable peace. Control your response, release the rest. You've learned the first discipline of the Stoic. Chapter 2, Stop reacting, start responding. You've been reacting your entire life. Reacting to people. Reacting to problems. Reacting to everything that doesn't go your way. And every time you react, you lose power. Reaction is emotion, response is power. Remember that, repeat that, live by that. Most people live like matchsticks. A little friction and they ignite. One insult, one inconvenience, one delay, and boom, they burn. That's not strength, that's weakness. Because when you react, you hand over control. You become predictable. You become programmable. Anyone can press your buttons because you keep leaving them exposed. The Stoic doesn't react. The Stoic responds. The Stoic pauses, observes, chooses. That pause, that single breath, is where maturity lives. It's where wisdom lives. It's where your life changes. Think about it. A driver cuts you off. You slam your horn, yell, curse, throw your energy away. You think it's about justice, but it's about ego. You just handed your peace to a stranger. The Stoic sees the same driver, feels the same flash of emotion. But instead of reacting, they breathe. They let it pass, because that moment doesn't deserve their energy. That's the key. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every battle needs to be fought. Not every fool needs your attention. Reaction is emotion. Response is power. When you live in reaction, you become a puppet of emotion. Every insult pulls a string. Every disappointment jerks another. And at the end of the day, you wonder why you feel exhausted. It's because you've been dancing to everyone else's rhythm. You have to stop. You have to cut the strings. You have a choice. You always have a choice. When something happens, there's a tiny gap, a small space between stimulus and action. In that space is your freedom. In that space is your power. That's where you decide, will I react like everyone else? Or will I respond like someone in control? That's the difference between the weak and the strong. The weak lash out. The strong lean in. The weak explode. The strong exhale. The weak say, I couldn't help it. The strong say, I chose it. Reaction is emotion. Response is power. Let's break it down. A reaction is automatic. It's survival mode. It's your primal brain screaming, protect yourself. But a response is intentional. It's your higher mind saying, lead yourself. You don't need their approval. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to prove you're right. You just need to stay centered. Because the one who stays calm always wins. You want to know why leaders, warriors, and thinkers are respected. Not because they never feel emotion, but because they master it. They know when to speak, when to move, and when to say nothing. That's real power. Not the loud power, not the dramatic power. The quiet, steady, unshakable kind. The kind that says, you can't pull me into your storm, I'll stay in my calm. Here, what you must do. First, practice the pause. When something triggers you, stop. Don't speak, don't type, don't move. Just breathe, count 3 slow breaths. That single habit will save you from 90% of your regrets. Second, question your emotion. Ask yourself, what's actually happening? What am I feeling? Name it, observe it. Because when you can label an emotion, you separate from it. It's no longer driving you, you're driving it. Third, choose your response. Ask, what's the most powerful way to act here? Sometimes that means speaking with clarity. Sometimes that means walking away in silence. Sometimes that means doing nothing at all. That's mastery. That's the Stoic path. You are no longer a slave to emotion. You are its commander. Reaction is emotion. Response is power. Let me tell you something you won't like. You can't build emotional control in comfort. You build it in chaos. You build it in conflict. You build it when you're tested and tempted to explode. Every argument, every insult, every frustration, that's your training ground. That's where you practice calm under pressure. That's where you practice stillness in noise. That's where you transform. The world rewards those who can stay composed. Your relationships improve. Your focus sharpens. Your reputation grows. Because calm people are trusted. Reactive people are avoided. You decide who you'll be. Look around you. Most people are addicted to reaction. They react to news. They react to comments. They react to everything except their own purpose. They live in emotional debt, constantly paying attention to things that don't matter. That's not living, that's surviving. You were not born to be a puppet of emotion. You were built to be a commander of energy. And that means mastering your reactions. Stop letting small things steal big energy. Stop letting temporary anger cause permanent damage. Stop letting other people decide your mood. You have a choice. Every second, every situation, every conversation. Reaction is emotion. Response is power. This is what mental strength looks like. It's not shouting. It's not showing off. It's restraint. It's patience. It's perspective. Because when you can respond instead of react, you move from chaos to clarity, from anger to understanding, from ego to wisdom. And the best part, no one even needs to know how hard it was. Your composure speaks louder than your anger ever could. You don't need their permission to be calm. You don't need the world to be peaceful for you to feel peace. You just need discipline. It's not about emotion, it's about control. It's not about reaction, it's about response. It's not about power over others, it's about power over yourself. That's the Stoic advantage. That's how you win without noise. So the next time life tests you, remember this. Pause. Breathe. Choose. Your calm is your weapon. Your silence is your shield. Your clarity is your victory. Reaction is emotion. Response is power. Say it again. Reaction is emotion. Response is power. You are not your impulse. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are the one who decides what those emotions become. That's real strength. That's self-mastery. Chapter 3. The enemy within is always louder. The loudest battles you'll ever fight aren't out there. They're in here, inside your own head. You think your stress comes from the world. You think it's your boss, your bills, your relationships. But the real noise, the destructive kind, is internal. It's the voice that never stops talking. It's the voice that doubts, criticizes, and overthinks everything you do. The truth is simple. Most people lose to enemies that don't even exist. They lose to their imagination. They lose to stories they created in their own minds. They lose to fear that never even happens. That's the tragedy of the undisciplined mind. It destroys itself from within. You don't need an external war. You're already fighting one every day inside your thoughts. Silence the noise, command the voice. That's your mission in this chapter. Let's get brutally honest. Your mind is powerful, but it's not your friend until you train it. An untrained mind is like an untamed animal, wild, erratic, destructive. It reacts to everything. It creates problems that don't exist. It keeps replaying pain that should have been left behind. That's not life, that's mental chaos. And chaos drains you. You're not tired because you worked too hard. You're tired because you thought too much. You're tired because your mind keeps running marathons in circles that go nowhere. That voice in your head, the one that keeps asking, what if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if I'm not enough? That's the enemy. Not your boss, not your past, not your circumstances. The enemy is the inner noise that talks you out of your own strength. You have a choice. You can let that voice control you, or you can command it. You can let it define your limits, or you can rewrite its script. That's the key. Discipline begins in the mind, not in the schedule. Let's make this practical. When the noise starts, don't argue with it. Don't negotiate with it. Observe it. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. The moment you realize that, you gain control. Your mind says, you're not good enough. You pause and respond, interesting opinion, but I'm moving forward. Your mind says, they're judging you. You say, maybe they are, maybe they aren't, irrelevant. Your mind says, you can't do this. You answer, watch me. Silence the noise, command the voice. The Stoic mind understands one thing. Peace isn't found in quiet rooms or meditation retreats. Peace is built in chaos, when the noise screams the loudest, but you don't move. It's not about having no thoughts. It's about having mastery over which thoughts get your attention. You can't stop your mind from talking, but you can choose which part you listen to. Every thought is an invitation. You don't have to RSVP to all of them. That's the problem with most people. They attend every mental argument, every doubt, every fear, every what if. Stop showing up. Stop feeding what drains you. The voice gets louder because you keep listening. Stop giving it the stage. Hear what the noise sounds like. What if I lose everything? What if I embarrass myself? What if it doesn't work out? And here's the Stoic response. So what? That's it. 2 words that disarm fear. So what? Because most of your fears dissolve when you face them logically. You don't fear the situation. You fear your imagination of it. And imagination is loud. It paints disasters that never happen. It turns small setbacks into world-ending catastrophes. Silence the noise, command the voice. You must learn mental separation. There's the event, and then there's your story about the event. One is reality, the other is noise. Lose the story, and the pain loses its power. You didn't fail, you learned. You weren't rejected, you were redirected. You didn't lose control, you were reminded to let go. See how the story changes when you command it. That's not denial, that's discipline. You are rewriting your perception. It's not about pretending everything's okay. It's about refusing to let your inner critic be louder, than your inner commander. Now let's talk about overthinking, the modern disease. Overthinking is disguised fear. It pretends to be intelligence. It pretends to be preparation. But it's really hesitation. It's paralysis dressed up as logic. You think you're analyzing, you're just avoiding action. You're waiting for the perfect answer that never comes. And while you wait, the noise grows. Action kills noise. Clarity comes from movement. When you act, the mind stops debating. It follows your lead. That's why Stoics move forward calmly, decisively, without asking permission. Because indecision feeds anxiety. Action ends it. Silence the noise, command the voice. You want to know real freedom. It's not financial, it's not social. It's mental. Freedom is when you can sit in silence and not be attacked by your own thoughts. Freedom is when your mind becomes your ally, not your enemy. But that doesn't happen by accident. It happens through repetition. You train it daily, the same way you train a muscle. Wake up and observe your thoughts. Catch the negative loops. Challenge them, replace them. Every time you do, your inner enemy weakens. Every time you ignore it, it grows louder. You must decide which side you're feeding. Here's a truth few people accept. Your mind will talk forever. It doesn't stop. But you don't have to listen. You choose which voice gets volume. The fearful voice or the focused one. The doubter or the doer. The critic or the commander. You decide. You always decide. That's your power, that's your weapon. Silence the noise, command the voice. Remember this. You can't fight the world until you've conquered your mind. You can't control emotions until you've calmed the inner noise. You can't lead others until you lead yourself. The battle is within. And if you win that one, the outer world doesn't stand a chance. Because once you learn to quiet the chaos inside, you become untouchable on the outside. Your calm becomes your armor. Your clarity becomes your weapon. Your silence becomes your strength. You stop being dragged by thoughts, you start directing them. And that's when your life changes. Silence the noise, command the voice. Chapter 4. Choose logic over emotion every time. The difference between a weak mind and a strong one is simple. One is ruled by emotion. The other is ruled by logic. Emotion reacts. Logic responds. Emotion panics. Logic plans. Emotion blames. Logic builds. You have a choice. Every moment, every decision, every conflict. You can let emotion take the wheel, or you can let logic drive. Only one of them leads you where you want to go. Pause, think, act. Logic first, emotion last. That's the formula, that's the discipline. Let's face it, emotion feels powerful. Anger makes you feel alive. Fear makes you feel alert. Excitement makes you feel unstoppable. But emotion is a liar. It promises power but delivers chaos. It convinces you that feeling is the same as thinking. It's not. Emotion is noise. Logic is signal. If you want results, you follow the signal, not the noise. That's the key. Let me paint you a picture. Two people, same challenge. The first gets cut off in traffic. He snaps. Honks, yells, chases. His heart's pounding. his blood's boiling. He's at war with a stranger he'll never meet again. The second, he pauses. He breathes. He stays calm because he knows reacting changes nothing. He knows the car in front of him isn't the problem. His lack of control is. Who wins? The calm one every time. Not because he's softer, but because he's smarter. He's not emotional, he's deliberate. He understands that emotion might feel powerful, but logic is power. That's what separates average from elite. Average minds chase feelings. Elite minds chase outcomes. You don't need to feel good to do good. You need to think straight. You need to stay centered. You need to act from reason, not reaction. Because emotion blinds you. It blocks your vision. It takes one small problem and magnifies it into a catastrophe. Logic clears the fog. It forces you to see things as they are, not as you feel they are. Pause, think, act. Logic first, emotion last. Here, what you must understand. Emotions aren't the enemy. Undisciplined emotions are. Anger can be fuel. Fear can be alertness. Sadness can be reflection. But only when logic leads. It's not about removing emotion. It's about mastering it. The Stoics felt deeply. They just didn't let feelings decide their fate. They understood that emotion is data, not direction. It tells you something happening, but it doesn't tell you what to do. You decide that. That's the key, you decide. You don't need anyone's permission to pause. You don't need approval to stay calm. You just need discipline. Here's your training. When emotion hits, don't react. Don't text back, don't post, don't respond, don't explode. Pause. Take one deep breath. Let the chemical storm pass. That's right, chemical, because that's what emotion is. Adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine. Your body hijacks your mind. So when you pause, you reclaim your power. You tell your brain, we don't move until I say so. That's control. That's mastery. Pause, think, act. Logic first, emotion last. Think of all the times you acted in emotion and regretted it. The angry message you sent. The money you wasted. The bridge you burned. The words you can't take back. That's emotion leading the way. And every time you follow it, it costs you something. Emotion gives you temporary satisfaction. Logic gives you permanent progress. And progress, not pleasure, is the point. Logic is not cold, it's calculated. It's what separates leadership from chaos. It's what keeps soldiers calm in combat. It's what keeps surgeons steady under pressure. They don't stop feeling, they just don't let feelings decide. When everyone else panics, the logical one leads. Because clarity commands. Emotion screams, do something. Logic whispers, do the right thing. Which voice do you trust? That's your test. Every day. Let's go deeper. Why do emotions dominate you? Because you never train the pause. The pause is the space between stimulus and response. That's where logic lives. That's where your control begins. Most people skip it. They go from feeling to reaction instantly. But the Stoic builds space. 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds. That's the power gap. The moment where you stop being a puppet to your feelings and start being a master of them. The pause is not weakness. It's your edge. It's your weapon. The person who pauses wins. Hear how you practice. 1. When you feel emotional, don't speak. Silence is strength. 2. Write instead of react. Put thoughts on paper. Logic lives in ink. 3. Ask questions, not conclusions. What's actually true here? What's in my control? What's the cost if I act now? 4. Delay your decision by one night. Emotion fades, logic stays. This is discipline. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because without logic, your emotions run your life. The world tells you, follow your heart. No, follow your head. Then let your heart follow the mission. Emotion is fuel. Logic is the steering wheel. Without the wheel, you crash, no matter how full the tank is. So drive with control, not passion alone. That's how you make clear decisions. That's how you build calm power. Pause, think, act. Logic first, emotion last. And understand this. People will try to provoke you. They'll push your buttons. They'll bait you into reaction. That's the test. They want you to lose control because that's when you lose power. Never give them that. Never let another person dictate your emotional state. You don't need their approval. You don't need their permission. You control you. That's the ultimate freedom. When you stop reacting to the world stops controlling you. You've got to build your internal firewall, logic. It protects you from emotional viruses. It filters what gets through. You only let in what's true, what's useful, what's aligned with your purpose. Everything else, ignore it. That's not indifference, that's intelligence. It's the highest form of emotional discipline. You can feel anger, but choose not to act from it. You can feel fear, but still move forward. You can feel pain, but not surrender to it. That's mastery. And here's the truth. Emotional people live unstable lives. Every high leads to a low. Every burst leads to burnout. But logical people, they build consistency. Consistency wins every time. Because logic doesn't depend on mood. Logic depends on mission. And the mission doesn't care how you feel today. It only cares what you do. That's the mindset of mastery. Pause, think, act. Logic first, emotion last. So remember, emotion clouds. Logic clears. Emotion reacts. Logic responds. Emotion is momentary. Logic is eternal. The goal isn't to feel less, it's to think more. To choose clarity over chaos. To lead with reason. Chapter 5. Pain is the price of power. Pain. Everyone fears it. Everyone runs from it. But the Stoic walks toward it. Why? Because pain is not the enemy. Pain is the instructor. Every strong mind is built through discomfort. Every powerful life is forged in struggle. Every ounce of peace is purchased with pain. Pain builds presence. Pain builds strength. Pain builds peace. Say it again until you believe it. You want mental toughness? Then stop asking for an easy life. Stop praying for comfort. Start training for endurance. The Stoic doesn't wish for less pain. He wishes for more strength. That's the key. You don't escape pain, you evolve through it. Marcus Aurelius didn't rule in luxury. He ruled during plague, famine, and endless war. Every day brought fear, death, uncertainty. And yet he remained composed. Why? Because he understood the truth most people avoid. The obstacle is the path. The challenge is the teacher. He wrote, "If it's endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." That's not philosophy, that's power. Let's bring it closer to your life. When everything collapses, the job, the relationship, the plan, you face two choices. You can collapse with it, or you can rise through it. That's it, two paths. Victim or student. Complaint or growth. You have a choice. When you stop seeing pain as punishment and start seeing it as training, everything changes. Because life, not testing your comfort. It's testing your character. Pain builds presence, pain builds strength, pain builds peace. Look at your greatest lessons. They never came from ease. They came from loss, from mistakes, from struggle. Pain introduced you to yourself. It stripped away your illusions. It exposed your weakness so you could build real strength. Pain doesn't break you. It reveals you. And if you listen closely, it will instruct you. Think about a muscle. How does it grow? Through resistance. The more tension it faces, the stronger it becomes. The same law applies to your mind. Resistance builds resilience. Discomfort builds durability. Without it, you stay soft, you stay fragile. It's not about avoiding pressure. It's about adapting under it. You can't claim to be strong if you've never suffered. You can't claim to be wise if you've never struggled. Pain is the tuition you pay for power. That's the key. But here's the trap. Most people waste their pain. They complain. They drown in self-pity. They turn discomfort into identity. Not you, not anymore. Your pain has purpose if you decide to use it. You can turn it into awareness, into discipline, into focus. Or you can waste it on bitterness. The difference is choice. Pain doesn't shape you automatically. It shapes you intentionally. You have to decide, am I going to let this define me or refine me? Let's make this real. You lose your job. Emotion says, why me? Logic says, what now? One path leads to despair. The other leads to growth. You get betrayed. Emotion says, I'll never trust again. Logic says, I'll learn how to see people clearly next time. Pain doesn't stop you, reaction does. When you face adversity, remember, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. That's not a cliche, that's a command. Because when you interpret pain as progress, you win twice, once in the struggle, and again in the strength it builds. Pain builds presence, pain builds strength, pain builds peace. Presence, that's the first gift of pain. When you're hurt, you become aware. Every breath, every second, every heartbeat becomes sharper. That's why Stoics didn't run from pain, they used it to wake up. Pain pulls you into the now. It strips away distractions. It forces you to focus on what's real. The mind that resists pain stays restless. The mind that accepts pain becomes still. And in that stillness, you find clarity. Pain builds presence. Then comes strength. Strength isn't built in the gym. It's built when life hits and you don't crumble. It's built when you're tired but still show up, when you're scared but still move forward, when you're bleeding but still breathing. That's real strength, the kind that can't be taken, the kind that only pain can teach. You earn it repetition by repetition, hardship by hardship. You build it in silence while everyone else seeks sympathy. And one day you look back and realize the pain that almost broke you built you. Pain builds strength. And finally, peace. Pain and peace are not opposites. They're partners. Peace is not the absence of pain, it's mastery over it. It's knowing you can endure, and therefore nothing can own you. When you stop fearing pain, you stop fearing life. Because life is pain, change hurts, growth hurts, letting go hurts. But pain also heals, it transforms, it frees you from dependence on comfort. Comfort is the real trap. Comfort kills discipline. Comfort kills awareness. Comfort kills greatness. Pain revives them all. That's why Stoics sought discomfort. Cold showers, hard labor, voluntary hardship. They trained to suffer, so suffering couldn't train them. Pain builds presence, pain builds strength, pain builds peace. You want peace? Embrace pain. You want power? Endure pain. You want presence? Listen to what your pain is teaching you. Every great transformation begins with discomfort. Every breakthrough begins with breakdown. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. That's the truth. The mind that understands that never collapses again. So next time you're in pain, don't run. Sit with it. Ask it, what are you trying to teach me? Maybe it's teaching patience. Maybe it's teaching humility. Maybe it's teaching boundaries. Whatever the lesson, learn it fast. Because pain ignored becomes suffering. Pain understood becomes power. That's the path. That's the Stoic way. You can't control pain, but you can control what it becomes. That's the key. Pain can become your excuse, or it can become your evolution. It can harden your heart, or it can sharpen your mind. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about transforming it. That's discipline, that's mastery. Pain builds presence, pain builds strength. Chapter 6, Detach or be destroyed. Attachment is the silent killer of peace. It's the invisible chain that binds your mind to outcomes you can't control. And here's the truth. If you don't learn to detach, life will destroy you. Because attachment is dependency. It's weakness disguised as care. It's the illusion that your happiness depends on something outside you, on results, recognition, or relationships. But freedom comes from letting go. Do your best, let go of the rest. That's the formula, simple, uncomfortable, powerful. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they're attached to control, to validation, to a version of life that doesn't exist anymore. They say, I'll be happy when. I'll feel good if. I'll stop worrying after. No, that's the language of slavery. You're tying your peace to outcomes. You're giving your emotional state to things that don't belong to you. That's not love, that's not ambition, that's dependence. The Stoics knew this. They understood a basic law of life. You control your actions, not the outcome. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Let that sink in. You can't control the weather, the economy, or other people's opinions. But you can control your response. That's your domain. That's your battlefield. When you act with attachment, you act from fear. You grip too tightly. You overthink. You force outcomes. And in that desperation, you lose presence, clarity, and power. When you act with detachment, you act from confidence. You focus on the process, not the prize. You don't need a guarantee. You don't beg for results. You do your job and walk away knowing you gave everything that was yours to give. That's strength, that's freedom, that's peace. Think about the athlete who can't stop obsessing over the scoreboard. Every mistake haunts them. Every missed shot breaks them. They're trapped because their focus is on what they can't control. Now look at the one who plays with total composure. Win or lose, they show up the same way: disciplined, focused, calm. That's detachment in action. Do your best, let go of the rest. That's not passivity, it's power. Let's get practical. How do you actually detach? You start with awareness. Notice when your peace depends on something external. That's your signal. That's where your work begins. Are you angry because someone didn't appreciate your effort? Detach, you did your best. Are you anxious because the outcome isn't guaranteed? Detach, you can't control the future. Are you frustrated because life didn't go as planned? Detach, life doesn't owe you your version of fair. Every time you catch yourself clinging, pause. Breathe. Say it to yourself. Do my best, let go of the rest. You're rewiring your mind each time you do that. You're teaching it that control is internal, not external. There's a famous story about a Stoic philosopher who was once told that his ship had sunk and his fortune was lost. His response: "I knew it was perishable." That's detachment. Not coldness, not indifference. Acceptance. He didn't pretend the loss didn't hurt. He simply refused to give it power over his soul. You can lose money, you can lose people, you can lose comfort. But the one thing you can't afford to lose is your presence. Because once you lose that, you've lost everything. Detachment is misunderstood. People think it means not caring. But it's the opposite. Detachment means you care deeply, but you don't cling. You give your best effort, not your soul. You love without expecting. You serve without needing praise. You act without demanding a result. Because you understand, outcomes are temporary. But your integrity, your discipline, that's permanent. It's not about apathy, it's about alignment. You're aligning your energy with what you can control and releasing what you can't. That's maturity, that's mastery. Look around. Most people live chained to outcomes. They're addicted to external validation. They scroll for approval, they speak to be liked, they work to be seen. And then they wonder why they're anxious, why they're restless, why they feel empty even when they win. Because the more you attach, the more you suffer. You've probably felt it too, the pain of needing something to go right to feel okay. That's the trap. And the only way out is detachment. Do your best, let go of the rest. Here's the paradox. When you finally detach, that's when you perform at your best. Because you're not tense, you're not desperate, you're not scared. You're free. And freedom sharpens focus. Freedom fuels discipline. Freedom gives you peace. The detached mind doesn't waste energy on what if. It lives in what is. And what is always where your power is. You want to build an unbreakable mind. Detach. Detach from praise. Detach from outcomes. Detach from timelines. You're not giving up. You're letting go of what was never yours to control. Here's a simple exercise. Write down 3 things that cause you stress right now. Next to each one, draw 2 columns. What I can control and what I can't control. You'll be shocked how small that first column is. But that's the point. That's your zone of power. That's where you live. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you reclaim your peace. You stop drowning in chaos. You start moving with clarity. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. Remember, every attachment is a test. Every time life doesn't go your way, it's asking you one question. Can you let go? You have a choice. Cling and suffer, or release and rise. Pain doesn't come from loss. It comes from resistance to loss. And when you stop resisting, you start living. Pain builds presence, pain builds strength, pain builds peace. And detachment turns that pain into power. That's the key. So next time something slips out of your hands, don't panic. Don't chase, don't beg. Ask yourself, did I do my best? If the answer is yes, then walk away with your head high. You did your part. That's all you owe this world. That's all you ever could. Detach and watch how light you feel. Detach and watch how calm you become. Detach and watch how unstoppable you get. Because no one can manipulate a mind that needs nothing. No one can control a soul that's detached from outcomes. That's true freedom. That's inner power. You've learned to detach, to focus on what's yours and let go of. Chapter 7. The Power of Stillness in a Noisy World. The modern world worships noise. Everyone's talking, nobody's listening. Everyone's moving, nobody's thinking. Everyone's reacting, nobody being. You scroll, you refresh, you respond. You fill every silence with something: music, messages, distraction. Because silence feels uncomfortable, stillness feels empty. But hear the truth. Stillness isn't weakness, it's power. It's not passivity, it's precision. It's not escape, it's control. Stillness is strength, noise is weakness. The Stoics understood this long before you were born. They knew that chaos outside means nothing if there's order within. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire in crisis, but every morning he wrote in silence. He met war and plague with calm. He understood that his mind was his fortress, and the gatekeeper was stillness. Today, we've forgotten that discipline. We confuse motion with progress. We think busyness means purpose, but it doesn't. Noise is just a mask for fear. Because when you're quiet, you face yourself. And most people aren't ready for that. That's why they stay distracted, because noise keeps them numb. But you're not like most people. You're here because you're ready to evolve. You're ready to take your power back. So here's your lesson. Stillness is not doing nothing. Stillness is doing the right thing, deliberately, consciously, completely. It's the ability to pause before reacting, to breathe before speaking, to listen before deciding. Pause, breathe, listen. That's the power of stillness. When your mind is calm, your actions become precise. When your thoughts are quiet, your vision becomes clear. That's the key. Think about it. When a lake is calm, it reflects everything perfectly. When it's disturbed, everything looks distorted. Your mind is the same. If it's full of noise, anger, anxiety, opinions, you can't see clearly. But when it's still, the truth becomes obvious. The next step becomes obvious. The right move becomes obvious. And that's what gives you an edge in this world of chaos. Imagine this. A man sits in traffic, horns blaring, people shouting, tempers boiling. He's calm. He's not racing. He's not reacting. He's breathing, observing, waiting. Another man next to him is slamming the horn, cursing the world, gripping the wheel like a weapon. Who's stronger? The calm one every time. Because control isn't about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. That's the key. Stillness doesn't mean apathy, it means clarity under pressure. Let's take it deeper. Your ability to sit in silence says everything about your strength. Because silence strips away illusion. There's no applause in silence, no validation, no distractions. Just you and your truth. Can you handle that? Can you sit alone without reaching for your phone? Can you listen to your thoughts without running from them? Can you breathe through discomfort without needing an escape? That's mastery. That's stillness. Stillness is strength, noise is weakness. Every great warrior, every great leader, every great creator knows this truth. The samurai meditated before battle. The monk prays before dawn. The strategist sits alone in thought before war. Why? Because stillness sharpens the mind. When you're still, you see the field clearly. You see the traps. You see the timing. You see yourself. Noise clouds your perception. Stillness clears it. That's why the loudest people are usually the weakest. They speak before thinking. They react before understanding. They move without direction. And then they wonder why their lives feel chaotic. It's not about being busy, it's about being centered. Let's make this practical. You want stillness? Here how you build it. Step 1. Guard your mornings. Don't touch your phone for the first 30 minutes after you wake up. Sit, breathe, reflect. Ask, what deserves my attention today? Don't react, choose. Step 2. Create silence daily. 5 minutes, 10 minutes alone. No music, no talking, no scrolling. Just sit. You'll resist it at first. That's the noise detox. Stay with it. Step 3. Observe before reacting. When someone disrespects you, don't explode. When life surprises you, don't panic. When you're challenged, don't rush. Pause, think, respond. That's how you turn chaos into strategy. Step 4. Protect your environment. You can't find stillness in constant stimulation. Clean your space, control your inputs. Mute the useless noise. Stop feeding your mind garbage. You don't need more information. You need more reflection. Understand this. Stillness doesn't slow you down, it makes you faster. Because every decision you make from stillness is more accurate. Every move you take from calmness saves you time. You stop wasting energy on nonsense. That's why monks and masters seem effortless. They're not lazy, they're precise. They act when it matters. They rest when it doesn't. They move only when the time is right. And that's what you need to train. A disciplined calm, a ruthless focus, a mind so still that chaos bounces off it. Stillness is strength, noise is weakness. Let me give you an image. Imagine a storm raging outside, wind howling, rain crashing, trees bending. But inside your mind, still quiet, unmoved. That's who you need to become. Because the storm will never stop. The world won't suddenly get calmer. The noise won't fade on its own. You must become the calm. You must be the eye of the storm. That's the mark of true strength, not to silence the world, but to remain silent within it. You have a choice. You can live like the masses, constantly scrolling, reacting, and drowning in noise. Or you can rise above it, focused, calm, and untouchable. You don't need their chaos. You don't need their attention. You don't need their permission. You need discipline. You need presence. You need stillness. That's how warriors are built in a world of noise. Stillness isn't the absence of movement, it's the control of it. It's the quiet power beneath every deliberate action. It's the calm heartbeat behind every strong decision. Train it, protect it, honor it. When your mind is still, your world becomes simple. And when your world is simple, your life becomes powerful. Stillness is strength, noise is weakness. Say it again. Feel it. Live it. Because when you master stillness, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, nothing can shake you. You've learned to... Chapter 8. Stop seeking validation, seek mastery. You live in a world addicted to validation. Every post, every comment, every like, it's a digital applause. And people chase it like oxygen. They measure their worth by who's watching. They confuse attention with achievement. But that's the trap. Because validation fades, mastery remains. That's the key. You've been trained since childhood to seek approval. From parents, from teachers, from friends. Do well, get praised. Fail, get ignored. And now as an adult, you're still playing that same game. You post your progress, you show your wins, you hide your struggles. Because deep down, you're still trying to be seen. But the Stoic doesn't perform for approval. The Stoic builds for endurance. They don't chase applause, they chase excellence. They don't care who notices, they care who they become. Validation fades. Mastery remains. Let's make this brutally clear. If your motivation depends on being noticed, you'll never last. Because the moment they stop clapping, you'll stop showing up. You'll lose momentum the second recognition disappears. That's weakness. And weakness is built on dependency. But mastery is built on silence. It's built in the hours when no one's watching. It's built through repetition, boredom, discipline, and self-respect. You don't need their permission. You don't need their validation. You need your standards. That's the key. Let's take a real example. Two men go to the gym. One posts every workout online, every flex, every set, every mirror pic. He needs likes to feel strong. The other shows up in silence. No pictures, no post, just sweat, just consistency. Months later, One still talks about his journey. The other embodies it. Which one do you respect more? Exactly. The quiet one, the consistent one, the one who didn't need the world's applause to stay committed. Because validation fades, mastery remains. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations, he didn't publish them. He didn't write to impress. He wrote to improve. His words were never meant for the world. They were reminders to himself. That's what makes them timeless. He built mastery in silence. And that's your lesson. Stop broadcasting your growth. Start living it. Because true mastery doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself through results. Through calm confidence, through quiet dominance, through consistent excellence. It's not about proving, it's about becoming. Here's the hard truth. Validation feels good, but it weakens you. Because every time you crave approval, you hand someone else the power to define your worth. You trade control for comfort. You become addicted to being seen instead of focused on becoming strong. You lose your inner compass. Stop that. Your worth isn't up for votes. Your discipline isn't a performance. You're not here to impress. You're here to improve. That's the mindset shift. That's the transformation. Validation fades. Mastery remains. Hear what you need to do. 3 steps, simple, hard, necessary. Step 1, audit your motives. Ask yourself, why are you doing it? To grow or to be praised for growing? To build something real or to prove something temporary? If the answer involves attention, stop. That's not mastery, that's dependence. Do it because it matters. Do it because it makes you better. Do it because it aligns with who you are, not who they think you are. Step 2, build in silence. Not every success needs to be shared. Not every step needs an audience. Let your progress be private. Let your work speak louder than your words. Silence sharpens focus. Attention dilutes it. The one who moves quietly moves efficiently. The one who chases applause wastes time. Step 3, measure by mastery, not approval. Ask, am I improving? Not did they notice. Ask, did I do it better today than yesterday? Not did they praise me. The standard is you. The scoreboard is your progress. The competition is your reflection. That's mastery. And when you truly live like this, something powerful happens. You stop performing. You start producing. You stop chasing attention. You start chasing excellence. You stop trying to be seen as great. You start becoming great. You feel a quiet power within you, the kind that doesn't need to shout. The kind that moves through life with calm certainty. Because you know what few people ever learn. Real confidence doesn't come from applause. It comes from competence. Validation fades. Mastery remains. Let's go even deeper. Every time you look for validation, you expose a weakness. A crack in your discipline. A hole in your sense of self. That's where insecurity lives. And insecurity breeds noise. The more insecure you are, the louder you become. The louder you become, the weaker you appear. Quiet mastery terrifies insecure people because it reminds them of what they lack: peace, control, and internal validation. So they'll try to pull you back into noise. They'll mock your silence. They'll question your confidence. Ignore them. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them a performance. You owe yourself progress. That's discipline. That's control. That's power. You have a choice. You can live for validation and remain a puppet. Or you can live for mastery and become the master. One path gives you temporary applause. The other gives you permanent respect. One feeds your ego. The other builds your empire. It's not about being noticed. It's about being ready. It's not about popularity. It's about power. Validation fades. Mastery remains. So train in silence. Study in silence. Heal in silence. Work in silence. And let your results make the noise. When they see the outcome, they'll wonder how you did it. They'll call it luck. They'll call it talent. But you'll know it was discipline. It was patience. It was mastery. And mastery doesn't need an audience. It needs. Chapter 9, Discipline is freedom. Freedom. Everybody wants it, but very few earn it. You talk about wanting freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom, creative freedom. But you don't want to do the work that creates it. That's the lie you've been sold. That freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not freedom. That's chaos. Real freedom is structure. Real freedom is control. Real freedom is earned through discipline. Discipline first, freedom follows. That's the key. Let's get real. Freedom doesn't come from skipping the grind. It comes from mastering it. You want to wake up when you want, then build something that allows that. You want to speak your mind freely, then master your craft so deeply that no one can silence you. You want time to rest, then earn it through consistent effort. Freedom is not a gift. It's a consequence. You have a choice. You can chase the illusion of freedom, momentary pleasure, short-term comfort, distraction dressed as liberty. Or you can pursue the truth, discipline that builds power, routine that builds peace, consistency that builds confidence. That's the difference between a dreamer and a doer. The dreamer wants to feel free. The doer builds freedom. When you skip your morning alarm, you think you're choosing freedom. You're not, you're choosing weakness. You're giving your feelings more authority than your mission. When you eat the junk food instead of fueling your body, you think you're enjoying life. You're not, you're sabotaging it. When you avoid hard conversations or delay important work, you think you're escaping pressure. You're not, you're feeding it. The truth. Every time you choose ease over effort, you give away a little more of your freedom. Because freedom is not found in comfort. Freedom is built in the fire of consistency. Discipline first, freedom follows. Look at any true master. An athlete, a soldier, an artist, a leader. Their life might look rigid. Their days might look repetitive. But what they've built, their peace, their control, their strength, that's freedom. A disciplined mind doesn't get pulled by impulse. A disciplined body doesn't give up when it hurts. A disciplined soul doesn't break when life gets loud. That's the real victory. That's the kind of freedom you can't buy, can't fake, can't shortcut. You see, the world sells you instant gratification, quick dopamine, quick pleasure, quick escape. It promises freedom through consumption. But every easy choice chains you tighter to dependence. You rely on the phone to distract you. You rely on the weekend to recharge you. You rely on motivation to move you. That's not freedom. That's captivity disguised as choice. You don't need motivation. You need a standard. You don't need more comfort. You need command. You don't need their permission. You need personal discipline. Because when you operate from discipline, you no longer react, you direct. You no longer drift, you decide. That's real control. That's real power. Let's make this practical. Start by mastering your day. Not next week, not next month, today. Wake up when you said you would. Train your body even when you're tired. Eat like your health matters. Work like your reputation is on the line. Rest like you've earned it. And repeat. Every single day. That's discipline. And that's how you earn freedom. Because once you build the habits that sustain you, you're no longer a slave to emotion. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You stop begging for motivation. You simply do what needs to be done. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. It's not about perfection, it's about persistence. Every time you follow through on a commitment, your freedom grows. Every time you say no to distraction, your power sharpens. Every time you show up despite the noise, you strengthen your control. Discipline builds freedom one small act at a time. Now let's flip it. What happens when discipline dies? Chaos. You sleep in, you scroll, you procrastinate. Days blur together, goals fade, energy drops. You feel trapped, and you can't even see the walls closing in. Why? Because you traded structure for spontaneity. You traded growth for comfort. You traded freedom for weakness. You thought doing what you wanted would set you free. But now you're stuck in habits you can't control, in routines you didn't choose, in cycles you can't break. You lost freedom because you lost discipline. Discipline first, freedom follows. That's not just a quote. It's the blueprint. Every empire, every legend, every transformation begins with one hard truth. You can't control everything, but you can control yourself. You can't choose what happens to you, but you can choose how prepared you are when it does. You have a choice. Every morning, every task, every moment. Will you act with discipline, or will you react with emotion? That choice defines your life. That's the key. Discipline doesn't restrict you, it releases you. It releases you from guilt. It releases you from regret. It releases you from the endless cycle of starting over. When you live with discipline, you don't need to be pushed. You don't need to be reminded. You just move, calm, confident, consistent. That's not oppression, that's liberation. So when you hear that voice whisper, "I'll do it tomorrow," answer it with action today. When your body says, "I'm tired," tell it, "I'm trained." When your mind says, "I can't," prove it wrong. That's freedom. The freedom to act, not react. The freedom to choose growth, not comfort. The freedom to stay steady when everyone else breaks. Freedom is not found in the absence of rules. Freedom is found in the mastery of them. Freedom is not granted, it's earned. And it's earned through relentless self-discipline. Because at the end of the day, you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. And your systems are only as strong as your discipline. So ask yourself, are you chasing the feeling of freedom or are you building it? Because feelings fade, discipline stays. And discipline first, freedom follows. You've learned how to master. Chapter 10, Unbreakable. Calm, be the still point in the storm. Chaos doesn't destroy you. Your reaction to it does. The world around you will burn. People will panic. Plans will crumble. But you must not flinch. That's the ultimate discipline. Not just strength, not just speed. Calm. Unbreakable calm. The kind that doesn't depend on conditions. The kind that stands when everything else collapses. Be the calm, be the center, be the storm's still point. Anyone can be calm when life is easy. Anyone can be peaceful when everything is going right. But calm under pressure, that's mastery. Think of the firefighter walking into a burning building. He's not screaming, he's not flailing. He's breathing, calculating, acting. Or the soldier in battle. Bullets flying, orders shouting. But his eyes stay locked, his hands stay steady. He's calm because chaos is not his master. That's power, and you have access to it if you choose it. Because calm is not a personality trait. It's not luck. It's a choice, a practice, a discipline. But let's be real. You're not trained for calm. You're trained for noise. Your phone dings, you react. Your boss emails, you panic. Someone disagrees with you online, you rage. You've been programmed to respond, not to reflect. And every reaction steals your peace. Here's the truth. Calm is not found by escaping the noise. It's built by mastering your response to it. Stillness doesn't mean silence around you. Stillness means silence within you. You can't control the storm, but you can control the center. And that center, that's you. Be the calm, be the center, be the storm's still point. Real calm is not soft. It's not passive. It's controlled power. A calm person doesn't run from conflict. They move through it with precision. A calm person doesn't deny emotion. They direct it. You see, panic burns energy. Calm focuses it. When you panic, you lose clarity. You make mistakes. You say things you regret. You tighten up, you lose control. But when you breathe, when you pause, when you hold your composure, you reclaim control. You turn reaction into direction. That's how leaders move. That's how warriors win. That's how Stoics rise while others crumble. Calm isn't about ignoring emotion. It's about owning it. That's the key. Let's get practical. How do you build this calm? Step 1, breathe. It sounds simple, but it's your reset button. Your breath is the bridge between chaos and control. When the storm hits, slow down. Inhale deep, hold, exhale slow. Anchor your mind to that rhythm. You can't think clearly in panic mode. You can't make strong moves when your heart is racing. So breathe until your body remembers you are in command. Step 2, observe before you act. Don't react instantly to anger, fear, or pressure. Create space, even if it's 3 seconds. Those 3 seconds are power. That pause is the line between weakness and wisdom. because emotion demands reaction. But discipline demands choice. You have a choice, and that's your power. Step 3. Detach from outcome. You can't control everything, but you can control how you show up. You can't stop the storm, but you can stop yourself from drowning in it. Your calm isn't about pretending things are perfect. It's about staying steady when they're not. Be the anchor, not the wave. Here's the paradox. When you chase control, you lose it. When you release control, you gain calm. You can't force calmness. You cultivate it. Through practice, through patience, through discipline. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally disciplined. When your anger rises, feel it, then direct it. When fear creeps in, notice it, then move anyway. When the world shakes, remind yourself you are the still point. Be the calm, be the center, be the storm's still point. Calm is contagious. When you are steady, others steady themselves around you. When you stay composed, others find courage. That's leadership. Not loud commands, not empty bravado. Quiet strength, controlled energy. The kind that can't be broken because it's rooted, not reactive. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That's the image. Waves will crash, people will fall apart. But you will stand. Because calm is not weakness. Calm is authority. Calm is command. And calm cannot be faked. It must be earned moment by moment, breath by breath. You think power comes from control over others. It doesn't. Power comes from control over yourself. You think toughness is loud. It's not. Toughness is quiet confidence under pressure. Anyone can shout. Anyone can panic. But it takes real strength to stay composed when everything around you explodes. That's who you must become. The one who stands still when others scatter. The one who speaks calm when others scream chaos. You want to be unbreakable. Then master your calm. Because nothing external can truly shake you unless you let it inside. And once you master your inner world, no outer world can destroy you. So when life hits you, when plans fail, when pressure builds, when fear screams, don't match its energy. Slow it down. Breathe, focus, command. The world moves fast. You move with intention. The crowd panics, you observe. The noise grows, you go quiet. And that silence, that unflinching stillness becomes your power. Remember, the storm doesn't define the sea. The calm beneath it does. So be the calm. Be the center. Be the storm's still point. That's your discipline. That's your strength. Chapter 11, The Discipline of Endurance, How to Keep Going When You're Done. There comes a moment when every person breaks. Or at least they think they do. The weight gets too heavy. The road gets too long. The body says enough. The mind whispers quit. That's the moment that defines you. Not the easy days. Not the victories. Not when things go your way. The real test is what you do when everything inside you wants to stop. When you're done, but you still have to move. That's the discipline of endurance. Endurance isn't about talent. It's not about strength. It's not about motivation. It's about staying when every part of you screams to leave. It's about showing up after the excitement fades. It's about walking through pain without asking when it ends. You have to understand this. Quitting is always easy. Anyone can quit. Anyone can walk away when it hurts. But endurance is sacred. Because endurance means you've mastered yourself. Not just your schedule, not just your goals. Yourself. That's the key. Think about it. The runner doesn't win because he's fast. He wins because he doesn't stop. The entrepreneur doesn't succeed because the market was kind. He succeeds because he outlasted every failure. The warrior doesn't survive because he's fearless. He survives because he refuses to stay down. You see the pattern. Endurance beats everything. Discipline may start the journey, but endurance finishes it. You don't need applause. You don't need recognition. You don't need anyone to see what you're doing. You just keep moving forward. One breath, one step, one act of will at a time. That's the way. Here's the truth. You will want to quit. You will question why you started. You will hate the silence, the fatigue, the loneliness. You will look for signs that it's working, and sometimes there won't be any. That's where people break. But that's also where you're built. Because the moment you want to quit and don't, you are no longer the same person. You've crossed the invisible line between trying and becoming. That's endurance. That's growth. Every time you survive the breaking point, you get stronger. Not just physically, mentally, spiritually. You're not proving anything to others. You're proving something to yourself. You can't buy that strength. You can't fake it. You have to earn it. Hear what endurance really is. Endurance is faith in motion. It's believing in a future you can't see yet, but walking toward it anyway. It's the voice that says, keep going when no one else does. It's the refusal to let weakness speak louder than purpose. You think you're tired. You think you're done. You're not. You've just reached the edge of your comfort. That's where the work begins. Because everything you want is beyond the point you want to quit. Everything. That's why endurance matters more than speed, more than luck, more than talent. Anyone can start fast. Only the disciplined finish strong. So how do you build endurance? You build it by doing what's necessary, not what's comfortable. You build it by pushing 1 inch further than before. When your mind says stop, take one more step. When your body says no, take one more breath. When your spirit says, I can't, whisper, watch me. That's how endurance grows. Not through big leaps, but small refusals to quit. It's not about how much you can take once. It's about how long you can keep taking it. That's the discipline. That's the difference. Understand this. The world breaks those who expect it to be easy, but it forges those who endure it anyway. Pain isn't punishment, it's the process. Fatigue isn't failure, it's feedback. You're supposed to feel resistance. You're supposed to face difficulty. Because that's the forge where discipline becomes power. When you endure, you tell life, I can take your worst and still stand. And that's what makes you unshakable. You stop negotiating with pain. You stop waiting for comfort. You stop asking, when does it get easier? It doesn't. You just get stronger. That's endurance. That's freedom. Let's be honest. Endurance is lonely. Endurance is quiet. No one cheers for the grind. No one claps for the nights you stayed focused. No one sees the tears, the exhaustion, the doubt. But you see it. You live it. And one day, that unseen work becomes unstoppable momentum. The reward for endurance isn't applause, it's transformation. You become the kind of person who doesn't need to be motivated. You become the kind of person who doesn't break when things get hard. You become the kind of person who finishes. That's real strength. That's real peace. Because when you know you can endure, nothing scares you anymore. So the next time you hit the wall, don't stop. When you fail, try again. When you're tired, move slower, but move. When you can't see progress, trust that you're still building it. You don't owe the world perfection. You owe yourself persistence. Because success doesn't come to those who never fall. It comes to those who refuse to stay down. That's your edge. That's your advantage. Endurance turns ordinary people into legends. It turns failure into fuel. It turns pain into purpose. So keep going. Keep breathing. Keep building. Even when you're done, especially when you're done. Because that's when the real growth begins. That's when you meet the strongest version of yourself. You have a choice. To stop or to keep moving. To break or to bend. To quit or to become unbreakable. And the truth is, no one can make that choice for you. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You need endurance. Endurance is the bridge between your struggle and your strength. Cross it. Because once you do, there's no going back. You'll never be the same. That's the discipline of endurance. That's how you... Chapter 12. Purpose over pleasure, living by a code that can't be broken. There comes a point where you have to decide. Do you live for comfort or do you live for purpose? Because you can't have both. Not at the same time. One makes you soft. The other makes you strong. One feeds the ego. The other feeds the soul. Pleasure is easy. Purpose is earned. And that's the key. The world tells you to chase pleasure, to seek comfort, to do what feels good. Scroll when you're bored. Eat when you're stressed. Escape when life gets hard. And every time you do, you drift further from yourself. Pleasure is a trap disguised as peace. It gives you a moment of relief and a lifetime of regret. Purpose, though. Purpose hurts at first. It demands sacrifice. It costs sleep. It costs comfort. But it gives you power. Because when you live by purpose, you no longer chase temporary highs. You build something that lasts. That's what the Stoics knew. That's what warriors understood. That's what most people forget. Purpose isn't found. It's built one disciplined choice at a time. You don't stumble into meaning. You forge it. Every morning you wake up and choose structure over ease. Focus over distraction. Commitment over convenience. You strengthen your code. That's the way. Because purpose doesn't live in your emotions. It lives in your actions. You can feel lost and still move with direction. You can feel unmotivated and still act with integrity. That's what separates the strong from the weak. They move even when they don't feel like it. It's not about feeling good. It's about doing good. It's not about comfort. It's about commitment. Let me be clear, pleasure is not evil. But it must serve you, not control you. There's nothing wrong with rest or laughter or reward. The problem begins when they become your reason for living. If pleasure becomes your compass, you'll always drift. If purpose becomes your compass, you'll always rise. Because purpose gives direction. Pleasure only gives distraction. You can see it everywhere. People spend hours chasing entertainment, validation, and luxury, and still feel empty inside. Because they've forgotten why they wake up. They've forgotten who they are. They serve their cravings instead of their calling. And that's the difference. That's the line that separates the lost from the focused. Purpose gives structure to your suffering. Pleasure hides it. Purpose tells you, this pain means something. Pleasure tells you, avoid it. Purpose says, stay the course. Pleasure says, take the shortcut. But shortcuts steal more than time. They steal your identity. Because every time you choose the easy way, you teach your mind to quit. You weaken your code. You surrender your power. And every time you choose the harder path, you remind yourself that your will is stronger than your weakness. You reinforce who you are. You say, I don't need the world to make me feel good. I have my mission. That's the power of living by a code. That's what makes you unshakable. You see, pleasure asks, what do I want right now? Purpose asks, what do I want most? And the distance between those two questions, that's your entire life. Pleasure is reaction. Purpose is response. Pleasure gives you the illusion of control. Purpose gives you real control. When you live by purpose, you stop being a slave to moods. You stop being owned by comfort. You stop being controlled by others' approval. You become your own compass, your own anchor. You stop drifting. That's why people who live by purpose move differently. They speak less. They act more. They don't chase, they attract. Because their focus is rare. And in a world drowning in noise, focus is power. But purpose requires a code. You must define what you stand for, what you will and will not tolerate from yourself. That's your discipline. No one can write that code for you. Not your parents, not your boss, not society. It has to come from your soul. Because when you know your code, temptation loses its grip. You stop asking, what should I do? You already know. Your code becomes your law. Your discipline becomes your defense. Your purpose becomes your peace. That's why soldiers, stoics, monks, they all share one thing in common. A code. They live by principles stronger than emotion. They choose what's right over what's easy. They act from clarity, not chaos. And because of that, they can endure anything. You can too. So how do you live by purpose? Start with one rule. Never trade long-term peace for short-term pleasure. When you want to quit, remember your why. When you want to escape, face the truth. When you want comfort, choose growth. You don't need the perfect plan. You need commitment. Because purpose doesn't require motivation. It requires obedience to your own values. Wake up with intention. Act with integrity. End your day knowing you honored your code. That's how you live by purpose. Every time you stay disciplined, you're telling yourself, I am in control. Every time you delay gratification, you're reminding your mind, I decide what matters. Every time you keep your word, especially to yourself, you build inner respect. That's power. That's sovereignty. And the reward, peace. Not the fake kind that comes from distraction, but the real kind that comes from alignment. When your values match your actions, when your purpose outweighs your pleasure, you become unstoppable. Because nothing external can control someone who's driven internally. So the next time you feel lost, don't ask, what will make me happy? Ask, what will make me proud? That's the question that changes everything. Pleasure fades. Purpose endures. Pleasure is borrowed. Purpose is built. Pleasure ends when the moment does. Purpose carries you through every storm. That's the truth. That's the discipline. Because in the end, the world doesn't remember those who felt good. It remembers those who stood firm. Those who kept their word. Those who lived by a code that could not be broken. You have a choice. To chase pleasure or to build purpose. To drift or to direct. To consume or to create. And the answer is always in your actions. Because purpose is not spoken. It's lived. Live it every day. Honor your code. Protect your focus. And when the world tries to tempt you back into comfort, smile, breathe, and remind yourself, it's not about pleasure. It's about purpose. It's about discipline. It's about becoming who I'm meant to be. That's the final chapter, the peace beyond control, living untouched by chaos. There's a kind of peace that can't be shaken. Not by loss. Not by chaos. Not by the noise of the world. It's not comfort. It's not calm music and soft lights. It's not pretending things are fine when they are. It's power. It's mastery. It's the peace that comes when nothing outside of you can touch what's inside of you. That's the peace beyond control. And it's the final discipline. You've spent this journey learning to control your fear, your emotions, your reactions, your endurance, your purpose. But now you let go. Because the highest level of control is no longer needing control. That's the key. The Stoics understood this. They didn't just preach strength, they practiced surrender. Not surrender as weakness, but as wisdom. You can't control the world. You can't control what people say. You can't control what breaks. You can't control what leaves. But you can control how you meet it. That's all that ever mattered. The goal isn't to make the world quieter. The goal is to make your mind quieter inside the noise. Because chaos never ends. Life never stops throwing storms your way. The secret is learning to stand still inside it. Be the calm. Be the center. Be the storm's still point. Most people think peace means everything is finally going right. That's not peace, that's convenience. Real peace is standing in the fire and breathing anyway. It's walking through the wreckage and saying, I'm still here. You can't buy that kind of peace. You can't fake it. You can only earn it. You earn it through discipline, through presence, through detachment. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You stop believing that your happiness depends on something outside yourself. You stop letting every opinion, every failure, every loss decide how you feel. You take your power back. Because when you need nothing, no one can control you. That's freedom. That's peace. Think about it. The world will always try to provoke you. The news, the traffic, the arguments, the plans that fall apart. You can't stop the chaos, but you can stop reacting to it. That's what separates the calm from the frantic, the focused from the scattered. You have a choice in every moment to respond or to react. Reacting is easy, it's automatic, it's emotional. Responding is power, it's deliberate, it's conscious. And that's the key. You've been trained to fight every battle, to fix everything, to prove yourself again and again. But the truth is, not every battle deserves your energy. Not every noise deserves your attention. Not every problem needs your reaction. Because when you waste your peace trying to control the uncontrollable, you lose the only control that matters, control over yourself. You drain your energy. You cloud your judgment. You lose your center. Peace isn't found in winning every fight. It's found in choosing which fights to walk away from. You don't need their validation. You don't need their apology. You don't need to be understood. You just need to stay still in your truth. That's the discipline of peace. When you master this, you stop chasing external control. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop needing certainty. You understand that life moves how it must. That people will be who they are. That not everything broken needs fixing. You let the world spin while you stand still. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because the moment you stop fighting the flow of life, you start moving with it. And that's where real strength lives. Here's the paradox. The more you need control, the less peace you'll have. The less you need control, the more peace you'll find. Because control is a trap. It keeps you anxious, grasping, restless. Peace, on the other hand, is surrender with awareness. It's saying, I will do my best and release the rest. That's discipline. That's maturity. It's not about running from chaos. It's about remaining calm inside it. So how do you live untouched by chaos? You stop feeding what drains you. You stop arguing with what's already happened. You stop letting your peace depend on outcomes. You focus only on what's yours to command. Your actions, your thoughts, your attitude. You let go of everything else. And when the storm comes, because it always will, you don't run. You don't panic. You breathe. You remind yourself, I am not the storm, I am the still point. You have a choice. Every single time. That's mastery. This is how warriors think. This is how Stoics live. They don't beg for easier days. They build stronger minds. They don't chase calm. They become calm. Because the world doesn't owe you peace. You create it through discipline, through awareness, through detachment. You have to decide. Will you live reactive or will you live centered? Will you chase control or will you practice peace? Understand this, peace is not passive. It's not surrendering your power. It's sharpening it. It takes strength to be calm. It takes discipline to stay still. It takes mastery to smile in chaos. Peace is not weakness. It's the highest form of control. Because when you control yourself, nothing else controls you. That's the truth. You've walked through every discipline. From fear to focus. From control to calm. From endurance to purpose. And now you've reached the final one. Peace. The kind that doesn't depend on circumstances. The kind that doesn't break when things fall apart. The kind that comes from knowing you are enough. When you reach that, you've already won. Because the man or woman who can stand in the storm and still breathe cannot be broken. That's who you've been becoming. Unshakable, unmoved, untouched by chaos. So when life tests you again, and it will, remember this. You don't need to control the storm. You just need to remain the calm. You don't need to predict the outcome. You just need to show up with discipline. You don't need to chase peace. You just need to practice it right now in this moment. Because peace isn't a place. It's a practice. It's a decision. It's your discipline. And this is where it all ends and begins again. You've learned the path. Now live it. Be calm. Be steady. Be purpose-driven. Be disciplined. And when the world burns, you'll still be standing. Not untouched by chaos, but untouchable because of it. That's the final truth. That's the peace beyond control. That's the warrior's calm. That's the Stoic's crown. You have a choice every day to live by it. So do it. Be the calm. Be the center. Be the still point in the storm. The world will not get easier. The storms will not stop. But you will get stronger. You will learn to stand still while others fall apart. You will stop reacting and start commanding. You will stop seeking comfort and start building strength. Pain will visit, but you'll recognize it as your teacher. Chaos will rise, but you'll meet it with silence. That's what the Stoic mind is, clarity under fire. So the next time life breaks your plans, don't break with them. Breathe. Step back. Remember, control what you can, release what you can't. You have everything you need to remain calm when everything falls apart. Now go prove it, quietly, relentlessly, and without emotion.